Scuba Goat Under the Sea, the podcast for the inquisitive diver.
Hey there, dive buddies, and welcome to the show. On today's episode, I have Dr. Matt Carter, who is a marine archaeologist and the research director for the Major Projects Foundation. He is an international fellow of the Explorers Club, a vice president of the Australian Institute for Maritime Archaeology, and a New Zealand representative on the ICOMOS International Committee on Underwater Cultural Heritage. Since 2006, Matt has worked on archaeological projects in 12 different countries, ranging from excavating ancient shipwrecks in the Mediterranean to surveying World War II wrecks in the Pacific. Having combined archaeological, commercial and technical diving for over a decade, today Matt works to protect the marine ecosystems, cultures and livelihoods threatened by polluting shipwrecks in the Pacific. Matt is the leading technical diving maritime archaeologist in Australasia. Matt, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thanks for having me, Matt. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's great. Now you can do a bit of talking because I'm out of breath doing that intro.
Yeah, it's pretty long-winded.
We'll get the message across. So just to clarify, do you want to break it down into English terms? Just pretend I'm a bit of a dummy, because I am, and just break down what it is you actually do and what you're achieving.
Well, basically, my job now is I work for a foundation and we investigate all these shipwrecks around the Pacific that are left over from the Second World War, which are full of oil, unexploded ordnance and various chemical nasties, and no one's got a handle on them. So we're set out to actually investigate what impact they may have. Okay.
And who came up with the idea? Because, I mean, when you first mentioned it to me, and you know, my initial response was that I've been diving for all these years and going on wrecks and thinking how awesome they are, and the blackjack in Papua New Guinea and God knows what else. And it didn't even dawn on me to think about any oils or fuels that are left in the wrecks themselves.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not a big thing in the Pacific. It's not well known, but you go to the Baltic or even the US, and it's been a research area for 20, 30 years, basically. And they've got a bit more of a handle on it. In the Pacific, no one's really wanted to know or really taken that much care. So I guess the director of my foundation, he was up diving in Chuk Lagoon, or Truck Lagoon, as some of your listeners will know. Yeah. And he came up with oil bubbling out of one of these wrecks. And he said, is anyone doing anything about this? And the guide said, no one really cares. He's like, oh, that's crap. Let's fix this problem. It's a problem that doesn't need to be there. Yeah. The oceans are getting a hammering from every other angle. This is a problem that we can fix. Doesn't need to be there. Okay.
So what's the scale of it? Put it into, some sort of perspective. It's not just some little wreck in Chuck and that's it, is it?
No, not quite. So once you start digging into it, and this is what really shocked me when I first got involved with the foundation and started doing some pretty serious research, is that there's thousands of shipwrecks right across the Pacific. So down from Japan out to New Zealand, it's about 3,800 wrecks with pollution potential. So, thousands of shipwrecks. And we've managed to narrow that down to a list of 55 really critical ones, which basically should have been surveyed 30 years ago, but no one has got to it. So now we're behind the eight ball, but we're getting out and we're starting to tick them off the list to get an idea of that 55.
Yeah. So how did you whittle it down then? What makes them critical?
There's a range of factors which make them more of a risk. So if they're in shallower water, then they're more likely to get impacted by storms and things like that. So if they do have oil, then the storm's going to break them up sooner. So it's like, well, we actually have to do those ones first, but shallower. I mean, basically storm surges, they can go down to about 100, 120 metres. So that's our kind of working range. So down from 0 to 120 metres, thousands of shipwrecks. So I think I've got a bit of job security.
Yeah,
it comes down to.
I think you're going to be diving for a few years yet, eh?
Well, that's the plan, absolutely. Yeah.
So what's the what's the way that you're going to clear it all up effectively?
Well, it's the real challenges. I mean, there's two ways of looking at it. One, it's pretty simple. In the US, in the Baltic again, what they do is they just find the shipwreck, they find out how much oil's on it or predict how much oil's on it, send down either an ROV or commercial divers, drill a hole in the side and pump it out. And this is, bread and butter for salvage companies. They do this stuff all the time, happens quite frequently, but it does cost quite a lot of money. You're probably talking between like absolute minimum $1 million US, more likely 5 million. There's some which have been 20, 30 million dollars. So, huge amounts of money. Yeah. But it can be done quite easily. We're not saying that we're going to be doing that in the Pacific. Ideally, it would be great because it removes a threat. Yeah. But for a start, we can just find out where the wrecks are. And that's the thing, like you talk to the authorities in, say, places like the Solomon Islands, and they don't actually know where these potentially polluting wrecks are. So they can't even build a response plan. So we're going to them and saying, okay, this wreck's here. We've got evidence that it's leaked oil in the past. If it leaks oil in the future, it's going to wash up on this beach. You probably want to organise some sort of response plan, whether that's trying to catch it with booms and things like that, or just some guys with shovels who can dig up the sand and get off the beach as quickly as possible. So kind of working a bit pragmatically to the conditions.
Yeah. But then you've got, the possibilities of being able to respond to it a lot more effectively.
Yeah, and the thing is too, is if you can pump it out, you can remove it from the situation. If you let it leak out, then you're in a world of trouble. Like even in the best conditions, they only recover about 5 to 10% of an oil spill. So, you see those pictures of huge kind of spills of leaks of oil across the water. They can only ever recover about 5 to 10% of that. So, ideally, get it before it happens.
Yeah, yeah. I saw the one that caught my eye, I think it's a year ago now, was the oil tanker accident that occurred in Mauritius. I've got a couple of mates out there. In fact, give a shout out for Tony at Crystal Divers. He was putting out almost daily videos showing, him and Dino Jenkins were running around the island and just doing little videos to show what was going on. But I think they kind of reacted quite well, the locals. But the devastation, I don't know how long it's going to be before it's all cleared up and the after effects have disappeared.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can be something like, 50, 100 years. And especially in Mauritius, such a amazing, I think it's a World Heritage Area or something like that for the corals and things like that. So, and the challenge we have in the Pacific is if this happens, the time it takes to respond. So there was a grounding up in the Solomon Islands 2019, and it took the ship that went ashore was still leaking 1 month after it started leaking. That's how long it took to mobilise salvage teams from Singapore to get out there. So the distances we're working with are enormous. Yeah. So it just makes so much sense to remove the threat ahead of time.
What's happening with the salvage side of things then? Because it's a month to mobilise. I thought they had salvage teams good to go. And is it just the politics of who's going to pay for it and all that kind of thing?
That was a really complicated one. Solomon Trader, yeah. So basically, initially, I think I don't want to get sued, so I don't want to go too deep.
Treading on thin ice here, aren't we?
Let's just say the alarm wasn't raised straight away. Yeah. And there was various complications and distance and weather and all the rest of it. So, it's the nature of salvage, I think. So, in terms of these shipwrecks that we're working with, just take that out of the equation and, be proactive, plan ahead. And that's kind of where we're going. But it's interesting because it's a bit of a step sideways from maritime archaeology, I suppose, in its traditional sense. And this is, I guess, where I am now. So, a bit different.
It seems to be leading the way on it.
Well, that's the thing. There are definitely crossovers, and it's something which a lot of my background really feeds into this stuff. So the commercial diving I've done, the technical diving, and just, I guess, the general love of shipwrecks and also recent shipwrecks. So you get some maritime archaeologists who are what I'd call purists, politely, who they wouldn't dive on anything that's not wooden. They just don't have any interest. Where for me, it's being able to go into a World War II shipwreck, and that history is so recent.
Yeah.
And to be able to experience that, it's a real thrill.
Oh mate, I can't even comprehend people being picky about diving. Just give me a puddle, as long as it's got something in there to look at, I'm happy.
Yeah, especially at the moment, with everyone in lockdown. I'm diving anything.
I'm actually getting used to diving in coldish water around Sydney. It's a shock to the system. I'm used to the temperate warmers, 30-degree water. Lovely stuff. In fact, I've just realised we've dived straight in at the deep end. I didn't even ask you about the background of diving. Where did diving start for you?
So I'm a Kiwi, as you may have picked up. I started diving when I was 16 at high school, out of Christchurch. So in the South Island, New Zealand there, and pretty rubbish conditions, crap fizz, cold water, and I stuck with it. And then I actually went further south. I went down to Dunedin, and you're talking 8 degrees midwinter wetsuits because couldn't afford a dry suit. I was at university. So shitty viz and cold water, but it just kind of went from there. And what you find in New Zealand is a lot of the diving is hunter-gathering. Like it's all crayfish and paua, so abalone.
Yeah.
And if you start going sideways and looking at like shipwrecks and things like that, you're like, what are you doing that for? There's no crayfish there.
Get the bloody food, you idiot.
Stop wasting your time. Yeah, but I dived a couple of pretty special wrecks. There's the Mikhail Lermontov, which is a Russian cruise liner which sunk in the 80s up in the Marlborough Sounds, and it's a full-on cruise ship. It's enormous. And it's only, I think it starts at 12 metres. It's on its side, 12 to 35. So perfect, beginner level wreck diving. Just don't penetrate it, obviously, until you've got the qualifications. But that just, completely blew my mind. I'm like, wow, that's a shipwreck. That's the wrong. That's for me, man.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. Yeah.
I think I've seen that one on a series a few years ago. There was a dive series. I think it was a Canadian dude and a Kiwi. They did 5 or 6 episodes, and I think that was one of them. Looked pretty big.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of the best dive sites in New Zealand, hands down.
Oh, I might be tempted to give it a go next time I'm down in Kiwi land, but we'll see.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we're not going to be going too much further, so hopefully,
exactly.
hopefully the specific Trans-Tasman bubble opens.
Yeah. I keep trying to nudge Miko Passy to give me a hint and a discount on a Ursuit dry suit or something like that, because nothing fits anymore. I need to get something new.
Yeah, they shrink. I'm sure that's the problem.
Yeah, especially with a COVID cushion.
That's right. Yeah.
So we got the teenage guy and getting your food. Where did the commercial diving come into it, and obviously the tech diving as well? Yeah,
so one of the kind of strange situations in Australia and New Zealand, scientific diving, it's kind of at a level, but to get paid to work underwater, you basically have to do a commercial course, and not as much now, but this is going back almost 10 years now. So to be a scientific diver, you had to do the commercial course. Now, on the commercial course, I was doing underwater welding, underwater chainsaws, all this stuff. I'm like, I'm probably not going to use them in my day job. But surface supply, Kirby Morgan helmets, awesome stuff, and it's amazing. Like it's just problem solving on a big scale with big toys, which I loved, and I've kind of pushed that forward into some of the stuff I'm doing now, and it's an interesting skill set to combine with the scientific diving.
Yeah.
Now, with the technical diving side of things is basically very, very few maritime archaeologists have gone down the technical path. So in Australia, there's essentially no one else who's a professional maritime archaeologist who dives deeper than 30 metres. So whether that's open circuit trimix or closed circuit rebreathers, it's just no one else. So I managed to make, a bit of a niche of that for myself. And that goes back to 2009. I was quite fortunate. I applied for the scholarship called the Our World Underwater Australasian Rolex Scholarship. So if you're talking about mouthfuls, that's a mouthful. But it's worth looking up. So I'll say it again. Our World Underwater Australasian Rolex Scholarship.
Okay.
So if you haven't heard of this before, basically I got the scholarship. They give out 3 of them internationally every year, one to a North American, one to an Australasian, one to a European. And basically you're set up for a year and you travel all around the world diving in your field of interest. So I traveled to, I think, 10 different countries, worked on projects. That's where I kind of really got my foot in the door with maritime archaeology, Mediterranean, Scarpa Flow, cenotes in Mexico, Great Lakes, all over the shop. And you're sponsored by Rolex, you're sponsored by amazing dive gear companies like Fourth Element.
Sign me up.
Yeah, well, the problem is you've got to be under 25. So
I'm completely screwed on that front.
yeah, not wanting to make assumptions about your age there, Matt. But,
yeah, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, but essentially it was during that year I was up in the Great Lakes up in North America, and I was working with the Wisconsin Historical Society. And it sounds like a pretty run-of-the-mill organisation, but they kind of really set the bar for technical diving in maritime archaeology. And the Great Lakes, like the shipwrecks there, you've probably seen some photos. They're just amazing. They're like snap frozen in time Disney shipwrecks. The masts are still standing vertical and things. So I was doing some work with them and started on my tech side, doing the kind of open circuit aspect. And then I went back in 2010, and that's when I got onto rebreathers and started diving. And they're an incredible tool for maritime archaeology, for scientific diving.
What's that? Just thinking of the Great Lakes. That's I'm thinking a TV series again. Didn't Monty Hall dive one up there?
Basically, if you can get there, it's incredible. I've never seen shipwrecks like it. And it's funny because, the locals, they kind of take it for granted because they've dived so many of them. It's like, oh, yeah, it's not that good. And it's the best dive of your life. Every dive is the next best dive of your life. And everything from 30 metres, even shallower.
Yeah.
But some of the deeper stuff is just mind-blowing intact. We were on a wreck called the Lakeland.
Okay.
And it was a car ferry from the 1920s, I think.
Yeah.
So it sank. And there's these 1920s vintage cars sitting on the seabed beside it. So you're diving on the shipwreck with cars. It was incredible.
I was just looking at, I got the name of it. It was the Ghost Ship of Thunder Bay, by the looks of it. You didn't dive that one, did you?
No, not that one. That's kind of a bit further up. We were out of Wisconsin, more in Lake Michigan.
My geography is well off there, isn't it?
It's roundabout.
Yeah.
I know.
I saw that one. It's like, it looks insanely clear for something so old.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that 40, 50 years ago, the lakes were actually quite turbid, so you couldn't see very much at all.
Yeah.
But there was an infestation of zebra mussels. So the little mussels, they came in the ballast of some ships, and they just multiplied massively, and essentially they're filter feeders. So they just filtered the entire Great Lakes. And the Great Lakes are, a massive proportion of the world's fresh water, and they filtered it out. So I was talking to this old timer, and he was saying he'd found this shipwreck, and when he dived it, he couldn't see the shipwreck. So he had like a blip on his fish finder, dived down there, couldn't see it because the viz was so crap, but felt this entire intact shipwreck. When we dived it, I think we had like 25 metre viz. So just the change is enormous. But yeah, it's an incredible place.
I think we'll have to accidentally tip some zebra mussels into the shoreline here.
I think there may be regulations against that.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, Major Projects Foundation. What's the background?
Basically, these shipwrecks, World War II shipwrecks, and this director of ours, he made it a personal mission, essentially, that this is a problem the ocean doesn't need. He's got a background in environmental remediation, which is a fancy way of saying that he runs a demolition company, but is used to doing things like big projects and, actually in an environmentally friendly way. If there's contaminated soil, you have to move that away. And so he's like, well, these are just contaminated sites underwater. And I'm not suggesting that we're going to take the shipwrecks away. That's really not that practical. And one of the challenges too is that places like Chuuk Lagoon, these shipwrecks are just absolutely central to the local economy.
Yeah.
So basically in Chuuk, their largest earner of foreign income, like cash, is tourists, diving tourists. So we are in no way saying, let's stop diving. And I wouldn't stand for that either because I love diving.
Yeah.
But there is a concern with these shipwrecks, and we can manage it by investigating them and removing their threat so they can remain some of the best diving in the world. And essentially, with all that being said, I was here in Melbourne sitting at my desk, and it was 2018, and I saw this news story about this couple who'd bought a former New Zealand Navy diving ship. So it was the New Zealand Dive Ops vessel decommissioned, and this couple had bought it up in Newcastle to go investigate these World War II shipwrecks. And I'm sitting at my desk going, what? they bought it. They bought a warship kind of thing. And so that was on like Channel 7 News or something. And I was like, that's how I came across them.
This is I think I saw that on your Twitter, I think, wasn't it? You got the it's got a hyperbaric chamber on there and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Oh, it's incredible.
It looks insane.
I saw it on the news and I thought, wow, that sounds pretty amazing. I was real skeptical though. I was like, these guys, they must have an ulterior motive or something. And I was in Sydney actually, and the ship's based up in Newcastle. So I sent them a message and said, I'm a maritime archaeologist, really interested in what you're doing. Can I come visit?
Yeah.
And so I went up there, and they took me on a tour of the ship.
Yeah.
It's now called the research vessel Ocean Recovery, and I was just like a kid in a candy store. You walk in, the rib that's on the back is kind of like the nicest rib. As a marine archaeologist, I was like, "Holy shit, that's amazing!" The rib is better than most boats that we get, and it's sitting on this 45-meter survey vessel.
Yeah,
it's got a 15-ton crane, a dive bow, recompression chamber. So, in terms of equipment for this mission of potentially polluting wrecks, it's just the perfect vessel. And I got to know Paul Adams and his wife Wilma, who are the directors.
Yeah, and
they don't have an ulterior motive. They genuinely want to help. They're in this for the kind of the right reasons. And I said, well, that's amazing. I'll volunteer for you. I'll be in charge of your research. So I worked for them pro bono, volunteer for, I think, 15, 18 months. And then it's turned into like a full-time permanent role. So I've been with them full-time since the start of 2020. So, how's starting a new job right at the start of 2020? I was like, yes. And then halfway through, I was like, no. Shit. I'm completely grounded. I can't even get up to the sites that are, our main research sites. But the thing is there's a phenomenal amount of research that we can do behind the scenes, and that's a lot of the stuff I'm doing now. So bringing together the resources and understanding what's out there. And the ships, as I said earlier, there's 55 of them, and they're concentrated mainly in Chuuk Lagoon. I think there's 17 there. Up in Bikini Atoll, there's 9 ships. After that, we go to the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, Palau, Guam. So quite a wide geographic distribution. But some pretty kind of, I guess, challenging conditions in terms of working in those countries. They just don't have the resources or the expertise to do this themselves. So that's where we come into the equation.
Fair one. Well, I can't do much on the archaeology front, but as and when you intend to hit Papua New Guinea, I'm more than happy to help you out, mate.
Awesome.
Just having lived there, and I had the WWII boat. Master PNG Solomon's, the old side boat, and I was with them back end of 2019 as they were doing their first trip into Papua New Guinea, just to give them a hand and get used to communication with the locals. It was awesome, and it's such a fantastic place to be.
And that's partly what we see too, is like in the post-COVID world, hopefully we can actually bring a bit of interest and a bit of attention to these shipwrecks, and then they can help out the local communities through tourism and things like that. So, trying to make it work for everyone in the best way possible. But a lot of what we're doing is relying on, or like speaking with divers, essentially, because they're the ones with the knowledge. So you look at Chuka Lagoon again, and the vast majority of diving that's been done there is by technical divers, take some great photos, all the rest of it. So it's about communicating with them and saying, how can we get your footage, or work together to make this find solutions, basically.
Yeah. So if there's anyone listening to this podcast and want to send you bits and pieces of video footage and all that kind of thing, are they able to do that?
Absolutely. And that's the thing. We're looking especially for footage which shows leaking oil, or I guess the condition of the wrecks as well. So, for example, the Rio de Janeiro Maru, it's lying on its side. The bow collapsed, I think, in 2014. So to get photos before the bow collapsed and then after, that's the kind of information that's really useful for us to understand, when it collapsed, did oil, was it released from the floor tanks and things like that. So, and it's going forward, especially through things like photogrammetry. So I think Miko, he touched on this in his presentation. But it's this process we use to record the ships, and essentially what we do is we take video or photos of all different angles of parts of the ship, or the ship in its entirety, and you put it through some pretty whiz-bang software called Agisoft. Metashape is the one that I use. And the thing is, I'm not a computer guru, so it's actually not that complicated. But you can make accurate records of exactly what condition that ship is, or that part of that ship, to sub-centimetre accuracy from a GoPro, or if you want to scale up to DSLR cameras and the rest of it. But that's something like Pete Mesley of Lust for Us Diving. Yeah. He's doing some amazing work up in Chuk, basically 3D modelling the wrecks. We're doing the same stuff, so we're working together. But if people are going to these locations and they want to, I guess, add something new, or add something a little bit more to give back with their diving, then that's a real accessible way that they can do it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe we can put some links into the podcast notes on how people can send information to you. And then you'll get inundated, and it'll give you something to do for the rest of the year if we get locked down again.
That's right. Yeah. That'd be great. And if people will send me these amazing dive photos, I'll just wish I'm there. Yeah. Be stuck in my office like,
So what's the rest of the year looking like for you? You got any kind of plans to get any diving done?
Yeah. So I've thought of it as a bit of a good time to do a bit more training and upskill and things like that. So I'm actually doing my crossover course onto the JJ CCR. I'm doing that with Jeffrey Glenn.
Yes.
So Chopper. So we've got that lined up in April.
Happy days.
And we've actually been quite fortunate. We received a small grant to record one of these shipwrecks in Australia. So in Victoria, where I'm based, there's a wreck in Bass Strait called the Cambridge. Was sunk in 1940 by a German mine. So you had these German merchant raiders, so essentially merchant ships which they camouflaged, filled them with mines, and then sailed them all the way down here and mined a lot of the harbours around Australia and New Zealand, like real devious, real cheeky stuff. Yeah. And essentially they put these mines out in Bass Strait to the entrance to the port of Melbourne. And the Cambridge was this enormous ship, 140, 160 metres long, huge, hit one of these mines and sunk. Unfortunately today, it's now located in a marine park. So you've got this World War II shipwreck, and no one knows how much oil it's got in its bunkers. So we're going out there to actually do the first archaeological survey of the wreck, which happens to be in a marine reserve, a marine park, and yet none of the authorities have any idea how much oil is in it. They actually told us that it was a coal-powered ship, so coal steamship. Yeah, it's not going to do anything. And we're like, well, actually, our research right here. See this? You're wrong. So they didn't take too kindly to that, but it'll be interesting to see how they react when we show them this intact shipwreck with potentially, hundreds of tons of oil on it, sitting right off the shore. So just because you don't want to know about it doesn't mean it's not there.
Bloody hell. And how deep is it?
It's actually quite deep. It's about 68 to the sand.
Yeah.
So it's going to be quite complex. We did a survey a couple of years ago off Sydney on the Japanese midget sub there, and that was in 56 metres. And that was one of the deepest maritime archaeology projects in Australia. So we ran like rebreathers, whole team on that. This is going to be another step up because the midget sub, as the name would suggest, 24 metres long. This thing's bloody 150, 160, whatever it is, in 68 metres. So to model this, to record this is going to be a bit more challenging. But we've got a pretty cool team and scooters and all that cool gear. So
so you're going to go and play with big boys' toys and get some awesome photos.
That's the idea. Yeah, absolutely. And some data, some serious data.
Yeah.
It's not all. It's not playing. It's serious stuff.
Now, I'm sure you can correct me if I got this wrong, but I saw, I don't know whether it was on your feed or someone else's, but when you're looking at the pollutants that are inside the wrecks, is there a way of using biological, what's the word?
Bioremediation?
That's the one. That's the word I was trying to think of. One of those technical doctor words I can't think of.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing too, is it very much is doctor word stuff. So we've got the Major Projects Foundation has got a relationship with the University of Newcastle out of Newcastle in Australia.
Yeah.
And they're experts in bioremediation. And what that essentially is growing bacteria that's going to digest oil. So this is quite common on land. You have something like a site which was an old service station or something like that, and they knock the service station down, and then they put this bacteria through the soil, and it breaks down the hydrocarbons, the oil.
Okay.
Underwater, it's not really as well developed, but the University of Newcastle has put forward a scholarship for a microbiologist from Fiji, and she's actually investigating a bacteria that grows on oil in shipwrecks. So we're up in Chuuk 2019 and recovered a couple of samples of oil from a couple of wrecks up there, Shinkoku Maru and the Kousimi Maru. And she's in the lab at the moment isolating the bacteria and basically trying to turbocharge them. So like down the track, it might be a way that you can put that back into the wreck and that breaks down the oil. Because one of the challenges we're facing is that these wrecks have been underwater for 75 odd years. They're corroding every single day. That it's potentially not as easy as just drilling a hole in the side because you might collapse the whole bloody thing. But if there's a way you could do it passively, so inject this bacteria into the oil and actually have that break it down. And what it does, the byproduct, so it breaks it down, it's just like carbon dioxide and water. So completely environmentally neutral. So potentially a really exciting aspect.
Oh, fingers crossed. So she's busy working on that one then.
Absolutely. Yep. So, email her. How's it going?
Yeah.
Working? Stop slaking.
Give us an update. Yeah.
That's right.
It's 24 hours in a day, work 26.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, it's a very big question, but how long do you think it's going to take you to just sort out these 55 alone, let alone anything else that comes up along the way?
That's the challenge. I mean, essentially, if we had unlimited resources, we could get out there and just absolutely smash it. You'd set up the boat and just go from spot to spot to spot until my hair's completely grey and gone. But at the moment, a lot of it is building awareness. So, for example, you think of things like ocean plastics. Everyone knows about ocean plastics, how destructive they are. And I'm not saying they're not, but some of that attention could be directed towards these other things like marine pollution, these shipwrecks we're dealing with, and we can remove that. So if we had more resourcing, we could definitely do it faster. But it's something I'm in it for the long haul, I suppose. It's a real motivation for me, I guess. So going from kind of traditional maritime archaeology where I love it. I love diving on old shipwrecks and you see these artifacts, you're like, wow, it's amazing. But it's just amazing. What we're doing now is amazing, but also has genuine environmental impacts and kind of positive ways of doing it. And so that's, I guess, something that really pushes me and motivates me to write that next grant, write that next bloody email to try and get more funding. So, yeah.
Well, you hit the nail on the head. It's awareness. I mean, I was completely oblivious, and I'm actually embarrassed to say that, but it's true. It didn't even cross my mind.
Well, it's not really that surprising, but one of the things is it's the oil, but it's also the unexploded ordnance as well. When you dive on wrecks as a wreck diver in the Pacific, and you're like, oh, look at that, it's a bomb. Look at that, it's a mine. No dramas, whatever. Yeah. And the thing is, it's not necessarily the explodey part. It's not necessarily going to explode and kill you. But what you also have is that a lot of these armaments have some really nasty chemicals, and as they corrode, you get these little pinhole corrosion holes, and this acid and the rest of it actually comes out, and that's in itself is a huge concern as well. So not only have we got these shipwrecks, some of them have got unexploded ordnance, but then if you look at the kind of the general issue more broadly, there's these huge dumping areas all around the Pacific where surplus armaments were dumped by the US Army, by the US forces. Off the coast of Australia, significant, like big dumping areas as well. Most of them are pretty deep. Yeah. But it's a real concern that not many people know about. So yeah, I think I've had a couple of lifetimes of work to sort all this out.
Yeah, I think so. There's actually Tufi Resort in Papua New Guinea, just off the wharf. You literally at the front of the dive shop, you can dive straight down, and at 36-ish it starts. There's a torpedo, and the first time I dove down to have a look at that, I was like, this is great. And then that little moment of, hold on a moment, there's a little bit of ordnance in there, and it might be one of those old-fashioned ones that's got an oxygen bottle in there as well, and didn't want to get too close to it and tap it with your fins.
Yeah, well, one of the great things we've got a guy who's ex-Canadian clearance diver.
Oh, yeah.
So he was in the Navy for years and years, and then he kind of moved up to managing the removal and disposal of all this stuff. And so he's one of our kind of advisors. So I'll be like, what's that? Oh, that's a Mark IV, blah, 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 blah. Tell us all about it. And then he'll give me the paperwork, and he goes, under no uncertain conditions to go anywhere near this. Make sure that the team knows all about this, no particulates on the suits and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you look at the actual paperwork, and some of the stuff is really nasty. And I think just because we don't think about it or don't know about it, you just kind of take it for granted. But when you look at it and the potential for harm, it's like, oh, shit, actually, we need to take a bit more of a close notice on that.
Yeah. Does he get all excited when there's something dangerous? Does he get a little bit of a glint in the eye of, I want to blow this shit up kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, he sent me some videos of some of the explosions and things, and they have the detonation charge they put on is tiny, tiny, tiny amount. So if it's inert, it just goes bang.
Yeah.
But if it's still live, it goes boom. And I think that's part of the advantage of being a clearance diver, where you just kind of got that thrill, that need for that. But yeah, I mean, it's a global problem too. You look all around the world, there's so much of this stuff in the ocean. Yeah. It's crazy.
Well, like you say, keep you busy.
Yeah.
Tell me about this Ocean Decade stuff.
Yeah, so basically there's all these kind of high-level things. So the UN, they put out ideas and these kind of programs which they try and get everyone behind to make things happen. So at the moment, there's a new one, 2021 to 2030. It's called the Ocean Decade of Ocean Decade of Science for Sustainable Development, or something. Okay. Which again, it's wanker doctor speak. But what they're trying to do, their heart's in the right place. They want to mobilise all these organisations. So around the world, there's all these different ocean organisations, and they're all pulling in different directions. So they're trying to make them all focus towards making things happen in a I guess, an action-oriented way. So instead of just talking about shit, they're actually doing it. Yeah. And that's what we see our organisation doing. We're actually doing things. We're not just talking. We're going out there and investigating it and solving an issue. So some of these shipwrecks, they're not going to have it's going to leak. It's going to have leaked out. But until we actually assess that, you can't tick that off the list.
Yeah.
So when people go, oh, yeah, there's no oil on that. How do you know that? Have you done an assessment? Oh, no, I've just got a feeling.
Yeah.
Mate, a feeling is not enough. We actually need to check this. And then we can put that to the side and go to the next one. And, which may have oil, may have unexploded ordnance, which is a lot more of a concern. But essentially, that ocean decade stuff, it's a way of really bringing the ocean to the forefront of what's going on. Because when you start looking at issues like climate change and all this stuff, the ocean is a big player in all of that. And we're doing our best to absolutely smash it, whether it's marine plastics, oil, nitrogen runoff, all that stuff. We're just hammering the ocean, and this is an opportunity to turn that around and try and fix things, basically.
Yeah. No, fair play to you. So how can there's bound to be people who listen and want to support this, but how do you control support? How can people support what you're trying to do? Is it by awareness or input or? Yeah,
we're always looking for, I guess, input in different ways. So access to, I guess, without sugarcoating it, finances and influence.
Yeah, give me dollar now.
That's right. So, if you've got contacts that go up the chain and you're like, yep, they should know about this, then tell them about it. And hopefully they think, yep, it's a genuine issue. Let's talk about it. Alternatively, things like people who go diving, Chuk Lagoon, Bikini Atoll, being able to access and talk to them, discuss what they saw, that's a real asset as well. And going forward, we're really looking to mobilise, I guess, kind of a citizen science, if you want to put another wanky term on it. But people who want to go help, who've got a GoPro, who are willing to spend a couple of dives recording parts of a ship, then we're really keen to kind of tap into that as well. And we don't really have anything set up right now. Pete Mesley, again, as I said before, he's doing some great stuff. But to kind of build towards that system where people go on their holiday and go, I've been here for 10 days. I'll spend one day recording the forepart of one of the ships or something like that. So just building that and connecting with other divers and getting the message out there.
Yeah. And is there a way, I don't know, I'm just thinking of a million things at once right now, but when you go and do your explorations of particular locations, is there a way that people can come with you? Or is that completely off the books?
It's not completely off the books. We're looking at ways we can kind of make that work. So, for example, down the track, when places like Bikini Atoll open, it might be the option that we actually set up a charter and fill it with like-minded people who want to explore these amazing wrecks, but also commit a little bit of time to surveying, to recording them. Yeah. So that's probably down the track a bit, especially with COVID. But absolutely. And I think that's part of it too. Is some of these divers, some of the guys listening, incredibly talented divers, all the cameras, all the gear, and they just want to use it for something positive. So more than happy to engage with that aspect.
That'd be awesome. Nice little money spinner. Put some pennies in the coffer. Help you guys.
Well, that's the thing too. Obviously, operating in some of these places is so bloody expensive. Yeah. Even just paying fuel and things like that. So, it's not a easy, cheap problem that we've tried to solve.
Fingers crossed for a lotto win.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. All right, Maddie. Is there anything that you want to give a shout out to?
I guess there's two aspects to kind of what we're doing with the maritime archaeology side of stuff. All across the world, there are organisations which interested divers can get involved with. So in the UK, there's the Nautical Archaeology Society, and they do amazing stuff in that part of the world. Here in Australasia, we've got the Australasian Institute for Maritime Archaeology. Go online, have a bit of a look at that, and we do training courses and things like that to get divers out and show them how to record shipwrecks. But I guess more centrally to what I'm doing, the Major Projects Foundation. So get online, have a look at our website, majorprojects.org.au, and see what we're doing, get a bit more kind of information. If you're feeling generous, I think there's a donate button there. And even if you're interested, follow us on Facebook, Major Projects on Facebook, and I've got Facebook and Instagram, and I think we were talking about Twitter the other day. Twitter's
you're pretty active on there, aren't you? You seem to, if people make a comment, then you pretty much jump on it and give a reply.
I try to. Yeah. It's a good distraction from other things.
Good. Well, all those bits and pieces and the links, especially the donation button, let's get them put in the notes that go with this podcast as well, and hopefully people can follow it through there and give you some support. Yeah,
absolutely. And we understand that times are tough for a lot of people, and part of it can just be you're down the pub, you say something to your mate of a mate of a mate who ends up owning a massive import-export business and is looking for a tax write-off or something. So we're happy to take. We're a fully registered charity, so we've got all the paperwork for tax-deductible donations. So we're not doing this by halves. We're genuine. So. Yeah.
Okay, so all those divers that are listening in and around Sydney that work in the city, in the banks, that have got loads of money, get in touch with Matt Carter. Dr. Matt Carter.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Happy days. Matt, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Matt. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yeah. It'd be great to have you back on as and when you've done that little bit down in Melbourne as well. Is Chopper going on that with you as well?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure his ears are burning and he's keen. But the hard thing is like the weather down here. So you plan something and the weather turns to shit, and someone's bought flights and accommodation, all the rest of it. So it might be easier for us, I think, for a start, just to do it a little bit more local with the local team.
Yeah.
But who knows? It really depends.
Yeah. See how desperate he gets for a dive down south.
I think he's calling my phone now.
Excellent. Matty, thank you very much, sir, and I wish you best of luck. Let's do this again at some point and have a little catch up, see how far you're getting down the road.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Matt. Appreciate it.
This is Scuba Goat Under the Sea, the podcast for the inquisitive diver.